The period of time between 3300 to 1200 before the Common Era represented a great leap forward in the advancement of human civilization. Villages would become cities, writing actually began to develop, which allowed for better record keeping, and several metals like copper, tin, and iron were smelted together to form a durable material known as bronze.
Though the term can be applied to any civilization in the world that had the technology to make bronze, the term a Bronze Age civilization usually applies to the rising cultures in Egypt, Greece, and the Middle East. Of course, those cultures would interact with each other on several occasions, sometimes peacefully, sometimes not so much.
The most noteworthy of these early conflicts was a 10-year-long skirmish between the loosely confederated city-states of Greece and the Anatolian city-state known as Troy.
The Trojan War saw Greece become a main player on the world stage with an implementation of battle strategies that would still be employed millennia later, and yet many of the stories from that era are considered to be legendary to the point that Troy itself was considered a myth. Then in 1871, a very amateur archaeologist named Heinrich Schliemann found a buried city that matched descriptions of ancient documents from that time period. Of course, along the way, Schliemann also destroyed like 9 other Troys, but he did eventually prove that Troy existed.
There have been numerous depictions of the Trojan War throughout the ages, most of which draw upon the oral tradition that was passed down through the generations and is usually attributed to a blind poet known as Homer. This is called the Iliad. In 1998, writer-artist Eric Schanauer pitched Image Comics on the idea of doing a more literate translation of the Trojan War. The principal players would be involved like Agamemnon, Achilles, Paris, and Helen. However, they wouldn't feature a lot of the more fanciful aspects of the Greek and Trojan religions. Or in other words, if you were expecting to see centaurs in this, I'm sorry, you're going to wind up being sorely disappointed. Today we are looking at Volume 1 of the Age of Bronze. This is 1,000 Ships.
In the Anatolian highlands, a young man named Paris returns to his family's farm after wrangling a wayward cow to see his father Achilles talking with a contingent representing King Priam of Troy. The group wishes to purchase the family's prize bull to be sacrificed at the yearly festival. This greatly upsets Paris as he was planning to eat that bull for lunch next week. The only possible way for Paris to get the bull back is to win it at the festival's athletic contests. However, the notion of Paris going to Troy puts his parents on edge as they fear a giant secret will soon be revealed. Paris spends one last day with childhood friend / temple maiden Oniwane. She is also worried, though not worried enough to deny Paris some goodbye sex. In the afterglow, Oniwane is woken up from a dream that saw Paris dead and Troy in flames. However, Paris pays no mind as he needs to get along, but he does promise to call despite the fact the phone hasn't been invented yet. 3 days later, and Paris is taking in all the sights of Troy. Paris prepares to enter the games despite having just missed the chariot race that started earlier that day. He enters a local pugilist contest and proceeds to take out the heavy favorite Prince Deiphobus. Despite the prince's objections, Paris is allowed to move on to the foot race, which he also wins. This leads to a match race between the two winners, and guess who winds up winning that? Paris moves on to claim his bull by stabbing it, only to deal with an irate Deiphobus trying to kill him instead. It's then the Aegeus steps out of the crowd to explain that Paris is in fact not really his son. He's really a son of Troy.
Fight on for all I see, our men fight on to victory.
Achilles was once Prince Priam's chief advisor, and when Paris was born, the oracle foresaw a doom attached to the baby. To that end, Achilles was ordered to abandon the child on Mount Ida to die. However, Achilles began having second thoughts and returned to the mountain to see a bear nursing the young child. So instead, Achilles took the child and went into hiding. Upon seeing the fine young athletic specimen that Paris has become, Priam rejoices and accepts his newfound son, completely ignoring a temple priestess named Cassandra, who also foresees a fiery doom for the city-state of Troy. Achilles is awarded 12 cows for his actions, but must leave Paris with his real family. Paris says goodbye to the man who raised him and begins the slow process of integrating into royal society, mainly by bonding with his older brother Hector. Soon, though, there's big news at the king's court as his cousin Aeneas arrives with some distressing news about Priam's sister Hesione.
Priam's father, Laomedon, had waged a conflict with the Aegeans over the building of the famed walls that encircle the city of Troy. However, as part of kind of a peace treaty, he awarded his daughter Hesione as kind of a war prize to King Telamon of Aegina. Now Priam wants to try to get his sister back.
Aeneas explains that a visit to Aegina didn't include talks with Hesione about possibly returning to Troy for a visit, as she didn't even make an appearance and Telamon just said she wasn't even interested. This leads Priam to conclude that his beloved sister is being held hostage, which leads Paris to suggest that maybe they should just do a smash and grab and abduct Hesione altogether. Priam likes the idea and orders Paris and Aeneas to set out and bring back his sister one way or the other. However, during a brief layover in Sparta to use the restroom, Paris changes his mind and instead decides to run off with Helen, the wife of the Spartan king Menelaus. It's totally okay though, as Paris had a dream that completely explains everything.
This is where the whole golden apple story comes into play. Basically, Paris was approached by three goddesses, Hera, Athena, and Aphrodite, who each wanted this apple as trying to get some type of prize from him. Aphrodite promised him the hand of Helen, the most beautiful woman in the world. So, obviously, Paris chose her.
Helen is reticent at first, but eventually gives in to Paris and ditches her husband alongside her daughter Hermione, though she does bring along her newborn son. Paris has his forces stage a raid on the palace in order to ferret Helen and her midwife out undetected. From there, it's back to Troy, with Paris figuring that a youthful Helen is way better than an aged Hesione. They don't exactly get away scot-free, though, as Menelaus' cousins, Polydecus and Castor, attempt to pursue, only to have their boat destroyed in a sudden maelstrom, which Paris takes as a sign that at least Poseidon is on their side.
I should point out that Menelaus was out of Caketown at this point on business, and when he received word of what happened, he began to set out to the other city-states to enlist help in attacking Troy, starting first with his brother, King Agamemnon of Mycenae.
All of these actions are sensed by the Nereid Thetis, who knows what this could mean for her son Achilles, prophesies to either fall in battle at a young age or die an old man in obscurity. Wishing for her son to choose the latter, she elects to journey to the island Pelion to plead with the boy's instructor Chiron to let him go.
Once more, I must apologize to all Centaur enthusiasts out there, as Chiron is usually depicted as a Centaur, but here he's just a really big guy. And I'm sure you're all aware of Achilles and the famous body part that is named after him because it was not dipped into the river Styx.
Chiron agrees to let Achilles go if the boy wishes to do so. Thetis talks with Achilles and stresses her ultimate desire to not bury his son. He acquiesces to his mother's wishes, and soon the two are off to the island of Skyros, where he will live with King Lycomedes' many daughters, as one of King Lycomedes' many daughters. Back in Troy, Priam receives word of Paris' actions, and even though the happy couple have yet to return home, Priam's advisors tell him not to really worry about retaliation. Still, it might be wise to make sure everything will work out, so a temple priest named Calchas is dispatched to consult the oracle at Delphi.
I should point out that this is all taking place over a long period of time, like seriously years are going by at this point. I mean, the Greek forces are slowly amassing, and we now return to Achilles on Skyros, or as he now goes by the name Pyrrha.
As time has gone on, certain changes have begun to take place, making it harder and harder for Pyrrha to keep up his ruse. In particular, the fact that he is growing closer to the king's eldest daughter, Diomede. The two have realized their feelings for one another only for something to pop up in the way. Finally, as they are off partaking in an all-female holy rite, the two fully give in to temptation, and Diomede realizes that Pyrrha isn't what she has always claimed to be.
And like most first-time sexual encounters, it's clunky, awkward, and leaves everyone feeling like they made a horrible mistake afterwards.
The ramifications of said mistake are fully realized 9 months later as Diomede gives birth to a son named Pyrrhus after his father's pseudonym. Becoming a parent forces Achilles to fully reveal who he is to Diomede, and the two continue to live in secret. Back with Agamemnon and Menelaus, they begin to encounter resistance among the many other kings who wish to avoid conflict altogether. The biggest objection appears to be Odysseus of Ithaca, who has gone as far as to begin manually plowing all the fields in his kingdom to appear unfit for battle. In a last-ditch attempt to break the madness, Agamemnon and Menelaus' brother Palamedes grabs Odysseus' infant son Telemachus and places him into the oxen-led plow's path. Odysseus gives up the ghost and joins, promising his wife Penelope that he totally won't take 20 years to get back to Ithaca. Odysseus' successful recruitment causes others to begin slowly joining the Greek side. That being said, they still need to visit the oracle at Delphi to see if they are on the right path. It's said that they encounter a unique figure who is greatly upset about what the oracle told him.
This is Calchas. Remember the Trojan priest Priam had dispatched to Delphi to see if the gods were on their side, and apparently the gods are not on the Trojan side, as now Calchas wants to defect to the Agamemnon and Menelaus' forces and aid them in attacking Troy. By the way, if you're wondering what happened to Paris and Helen, so would I. They've completely vanished. I mean, again, years have gone by at this point. They're not even back in Troy yet.
Calchas explains that the oracle gave him a vision of Paris standing in the middle of Troy as it burned to the ground. However, the only way for the Greeks to truly achieve victory is to win over the young warrior Achilles. Calchas even knows that Achilles is on Skyros and not Pelion, where many believe him to be. To that end, Odysseus and Diomedes are dispatched to Skyros to talk with Lycomedes. The king, however, knows nothing of Achilles' presence on his island. However, Odysseus can't help but notice a rather mannish-looking daughter amongst Lycomedes' brood. The next day, Odysseus and Diomedes return from their ship with several gifts, with one specifically for Achilles, the golden spear of Peleus, Achilles' father. Though drawn to the weapon, Achilles does his best to resist revealing his identity, that is, until the attack horn sounds, causing Achilles to instinctively grab the spear and prepare for battle. Achilles knows he has no other choice but to go fight in Troy, though he promises to return to Diomede and their family. I mean, just because he's fated to die young in battle doesn't mean he's going to die young in this particular battle. Odysseus, Diomedes, and Achilles reunite with Agamemnon's forces, where they are given a hero's welcome. The Greeks are still not ready to attack as their supplies are just too low at the moment, so they're going to need to make a few pit stops along the way. Also, Calchas is allowed to return to Troy to hopefully ferret his widowed daughter Cressida out of the city before things turn south. Still, now war officially does loom on the horizon.
And that concludes our look at Age of Bronze, Volume 1, 1,000 Ships. How was it? Well, on the plus side, I do think the artwork is really good. I think it's actually great. I think it looks a lot like a nice Greek artifice, those old ancient paintings you see on the stone walls. I mean, it's really reminiscent of that. It feels like it could have been there. And, you know, I do kind of like the way they sort of compensate for a lot of the more fanciful aspects of the Greek religion by having it being chalked up to dreams and everything. Like, again, Paris, the Golden Apple, and stories like that. And, you know, the characters all feel like they're real people. Like, I mean, their exploits aren't entirely realistic, but still, like, the characters feel realistic, you know? They feel like they actually existed. I mean, you know, a lot of that's kind of legend and how much of that is fact, but, you know, it feels like they're a bit more factual than not. That being said, there are some parts of the story that just feel kind of missing, you know? I mean, Paris and Helen don't even meet. Like, it's just literally, like, we see Paris is leaving for, you know, to go rescue Hesione or whatever, and, you know, they start off in Sparta, and suddenly he's leaving with Helen. And it's like, hey, what happened? We didn't see anything of that. We didn't get their meet cute at all or anything like that. We get one brief flashback where he explains the Golden Apple story, but that was it. Like, that, and then they just vanish again. Like, seriously, you at least show them arriving back in Troy. It would make the most amount of sense, don't you think? I mean, just, again, it feels really clunky and awkward. And also, you know, I like the fact that there's a nice appendix at the back that helps explain some of the historical bits and some of the pronunciations. But I kind of wish this was more spread out via footnotes through the story. I think it would help to have some caption boxes to just help set the stage a little bit better. I think, yeah, again, the presentation's a little awkward in some places, because sometimes you're just like, okay, who are we talking to again? Oh, yeah, that's right, we're supposed to be here now. And I mean, it took me a while to realize that, you know, Paris was on Sparta. Again, just some confusing bits there. And that's what kind of keeps me from giving this a full recommendation. It's still very good, and, you know, if you're into Greek history, it's worth a read. But I can't give, you know, anything higher than a B. I can't, like I said, it's just a little too clunky in the storytelling sometimes. And with that, let's see what we're doing next time on the Random Trade Review.
Remember, you can help support my channel at patreon.com/sleepytimeforcatproductions. There, you can request a trade to be put in the randomizer, aka the cardboard box. Also, remember, like, comment, share, subscribe, and ring that notification bell.